So this evening I want to talk about Joko Beck's core beliefs. I want to talk about this book, Ordinary Wonder. This is the third and last volume of her Dharma talks, published actually quite recently, so quite a few years after her death and quite a few years after finishing teaching. And when I say Joko Beck's core beliefs, I don't mean what she truly believed in her heart about the world or about practice, but the psychological theory of core beliefs, which is to say little nuggets, little negative affirmations, if you like, that can be seen as running us. And this was a theory that was, well, still current in a way, but quite popular in the 1990s, 2000s. As I've often said, Joko Beck had no formal psychological training, so like any of us, she picked up what she found to hand and what she could find useful. Over the years, the idea of core beliefs became increasingly important to her. And I think, as with all of the aspects of Joko's teaching we've been looking at, the way she uses them highlights both the strengths and weaknesses. But I think with core beliefs, what's really interesting is the way that she applies it, how she plugs it into practice, places it in the service of our fundamental practice. That's actually way more interesting than the psychological theory itself. So I'll let her introduce what she means by core beliefs, and I'll probably gloss that a little as we go on, and then I'll talk around it for a few minutes. So let's have a look. Yeah, as I say, this is Ordinary Wonder, third volume of Joko's Dharma talks. And as always, she speaks wonderfully. It's just wonderful to listen to. Before we're born, we actually have it pretty good. For most of us, everything suits us in the womb. We're warm enough. We have enough to eat. Nothing threatens us. The minute we're born, though, we no longer experience the totality of being fed all the time in a warm, peaceful environment. Doesn't mean that our parents are not good parents. There's no parent who can supply the craving of an infant for total love and safety. The infant's view is that they should have everything they want immediately. It's just not possible. We aren't physically equipped to serve anything, even a baby, that way. So very early on, the infant, without thinking of course, begins to get the idea that this is a rocky road out here. Perhaps there's even a pre-verbal version of the thought, I'd really like to go back, but here I am. The baby doesn't know what to do, so as it grows into a child, it works out its own plan. And when things go wrong for you as a young child, as they will, you can't conceive that it's because the adults around you might be something less than perfect. You can only conceive that there's something wrong with you, and that's why you're not getting this thing you need. The only answer is that there's something individually wrong. That something wrong calcifies into something negative, which I call the core belief. So there's actually a lot going on there. I mean, this is it's a kind of anthropological approach to psychology. It's saying, well, this is simply what it is to be human. We all have this. We all have the same basic experience. Nothing to do with the particularity of our parents. Nothing to do with our culture. Just the way it is. That's interesting, and that's worth asking about, worth investigating. When things go wrong for you as a young child, as they will, you can't conceive that it's because the adults around you might be something less than perfect. Okay, so you think it's your fault. Actually, I was teaching Joko, teaching this stuff for years. And one day you think, why? Actually, why? Why would you think that as a young child? Why would you have that thought? And that sent me thinking, that's something I want to come back to quite strongly. But again, like so many psychological theories, it's saying something happened when I was little, and that's framed my whole life. Okay, that's worth asking about as well. Is that how it works? So even in, briefest of introduction, we've already got actually questions we should be asking about this in terms of the theory of what's being presented. As I say, I think the way she uses it is far more interesting than this, but, I think we need to work through this stuff. Okay, so, oh yeah, the only answer is that there's something individually wrong. And this is interesting, isn't it? Because the idea, there's something wrong with the world, so I turn it back on me. Why would I do that? And is that what we do in other ways too? That's something I want to come back to. The reason you're not getting what you need as a small child has nothing to do with you, quite right, Joko, and everything to do with the grown-ups and the world they live in. Yeah. But from the standpoint of this developing little human being, the belief arises that there's something wrong with them. And this is the nubber core belief, something we're all supposed to believe in some form or another. I'm unworthy. Good things can't happen to me. Depending on the exact circumstances you went through as a child, your belief will have its own tenor. No two are precisely alike, but there are always some form of, there is something wrong with me. And again, she says, just messing about a bit, oh yeah, a little later, our core belief for most of us comes down to some version of, I feel worthless. That can look like, I'm not enough. I'm hopeless. I can't do anything. I'm disgusting. I'm not lovable. There are lots of variations, but always on the same separate, miserable state. And it's interesting because she is emphasising the separation that feelings like this bring to us. They are, yeah, absolutely bang on, Joko. They're the experience of being separate. Interesting. So she says, well, what about this? Again, this is an interesting slide. It's excruciatingly painful to have this belief running your life. Yeah, and the argument around core beliefs is that we just hold on to these beliefs and we, come back to them again and again, and we do literally let them run our lives. Babies can't stand it better than anyone else. Since they're so smart, and they're very smart, they quickly begin to devise ways of handling that. And if the total love just doesn't seem to be appearing naturally, we begin looking for it somewhere else and devising means of getting it. And this is where we move from core belief onto your kind of personal strategy that organises how you live your life. And yeah, actually there's some sense behind this. Not necessarily the great explanation, but certainly, depending on what you learnt and were taught, this may look like anything from being good, if I'm good, I'll get what I want, surely, to acting out. No, I have to be noticed, whatever. From trying to disappear, not really here, to making a big fuss. This belief, she says, is like the hub of a wheel. Out of it comes the spokes, the systems and strategies we use so we don't have to feel the pain of this core belief. This is where we're beginning to get. This is where we get the beginnings of the encounter with the body. This is painful. Now this is where it starts getting really important. We don't strategies we use so we don't have to feel the pain of this false core belief. But in short, it's too painful to bear. It's kind of a fundamental experience in this way. It's too painful to bear. We can't stand to feel it. So what do? There's no one who can stand to feel entirely, absolutely unlovable. People who feel their core belief strongly and remain unconscious of it often withdraw more and more and begin to do harm. I'm not just talking about extreme cases here, she says. To some degree, we all do this. We cannot bear to feel so bad. So we develop our different strategies. Sometimes they're aggressive, sometimes they're placating. Very nice, charming. They can be anything. They may look wonderful in the eyes of the world, people pleaser, or they may look disgraceful in the eyes of the world, depending on how you're working this out within yourself. The important thing is not the particular content of your strategies, but that you notice that they are strategies and begin to trace the spokes back to the hub. So we're looking at the kind of causality here. And this is a really interesting idea, that the stories I habitually tell about myself, whether or not I'm consciously aware of them all the time, they affect how I act. And how do they affect how I act? Because of the pain they cause me. Because this pain is literally unbearable. So I do something. And I form whatever strategies are possible. Again, we don't strictly need the idea of core belief to think in this way. So let's carry on. Let's see how we're doing. You may not know what your core belief is. Most of us don't. Fair enough. We don't want to see it because it's always so bad. It's the bad thing, the bad place where we don't want to go. But if you dig enough, if you meditate enough, there it is. And this is one of my favourite paragraphs of Joko altogether. When you really see it, when you get the right formulation of it, when you connect with it, not just words in your head, but when you feel what those words mean. When you really see it, it goes bing, and you know that's it. It is always, always painful. It's like you're about to vomit. It's that awful feeling. That's the one. When you feel something like a punch in the stomach, then you know you've got it. And with that great awful feeling is the beginning of relief, because it's not hidden anymore. You're beginning to relieve yourself of the tension of hiding this core belief. And so this is really the heart of it. We bring this story, whatever it is, wherever it's from, to our sitting, to our practice. And we own its pain, we own its awfulness. It's horrendous. And we sit with it. And this is the opposite of finding the strategies which let us avoid feeling this pain. And by allowing ourselves to experience this pain, things change. So this isn't going on in our head, this isn't rationalization, this isn't positive affirmation, this isn't anything like that. It's just going, ouch. And that's okay. Back to Joko. Most of us spend years, decades of our whole life busy with these efforts to avoid feeling what's there. But practice offers another approach. When we sit day by day by day, we begin to develop very slowly, very tentatively, the ability to return to the only thing that will give us peace, which is to enter right down into the pain of the core belief. And I'll take that sideways immediately, is to enter right down into the pain of whatever fundamental pain that we've found, whatever fundamental difficulty. Joko loves the idea of core belief here because it's that one that's going to unlock everything, that one that punches you like a blow to the stomach, knocks the wind out of you, makes you feel like you want to throw up. But it's the same with all our pain in different forms, and whether or not we're happy with the idea of core belief, it's that where I don't want to go, where I definitely don't want to go for whatever reason. You have to dive right into it and learn to live there. It doesn't mean it looks any different to your friends. They won't see what's happening. But this is your practice to learn to just rest in the pain. As Benoit says, this is Hubert Benoit, author of one of the weirdest books on Zen in history. Can I find the reference? Yes, The Supreme Doctrine. Barry told me years ago, don't read it. It's unreadable. It's awful. But it was Joko's favourite Zen book. Why? Because Benoit was, I think, temporarily paralysed for some time. And it's his experience of literally practicing with being unable to move and just having to be there. And the pain of this icy couch, as he calls it. And that was Joko's inspiration to practice. Yes, let us all lie on the icy couch of our pain. Which sounds dreadful. But actually it's the only thing that we can do. It's, in a sense, the greatest gift that our Zazen can give us. I sound stupid saying that, but whatever. It doesn't mean it looks any different to your friends, but this is your practice to learn to just rest in the pain. As Benoit says, at least let me rest on that icy couch. There's nothing else to be done except to rest directly in the pain. When you're resting in the pain itself, you begin not to need the covers. You don't need covers for something that is already uncovered. You're in the middle of it. At first, you just do a little bit. Don't worry. We're not going to do it all at once, but we have to be willing to do something. Sitting builds the power and the sensitivity so that we can be with ourselves. At first, we can do it for maybe 10 seconds. Then over time, 3 minutes, 10 minutes. Finally, we can sit in dignity in the middle of all that. Just sit there and let the pain and the misery be. That's the dignity of sitting. When unreality, the core, meets reality, which is experiencing, reality is simply experiencing, then slowly the unreality just fades away. And you go back into your Buddha nature, your open, compassionate, loving self. You begin to recognize what's underneath the surface, what's underneath even that core belief. There you are. Okay, so maybe you begin to see what I mean by saying what she does with this. The idea of finding this fundamental dis-ease, this discomfort, this pain, and addressing that with our sitting, not forcing ourselves, and slowly, gently, kindly, but returning and returning and returning, which is always the heart of our practice. What happens? Change happens. Now this might immediately, few real problems immediately with this. Firstly, if core belief is right and all we have to do is connect with that, map out the strategies and sit with it, then why is Barry Magid, my teacher, writing all these books about psychoanalysis and Zen? Surely we don't need that. Well, if that were the case, that all we needed was to identify our core belief and work with it, then yeah, that would probably be true. But core belief is quite a limited idea for some of the reasons we can point to. But again, I'll come back to it's what Joko does with it. It's bringing it to the body. The point of actually just experiencing this is not about sitting and having a lovely time. It's not even about sitting and having a horrible time. It's just sitting with whatever is and allowing whatever needs to be to unfold. And sooner or later, the things that are really, that we've been keeping at bay, whatever, using so much of our energy, keeping them out, they show themselves. We make space for them to show themselves. And then we can connect. And then change of a sort happens. And as I say, she was, casting around for most of the 80s and 90s in California, just looking for, what ideas might help me? What can I use in teaching? And like a lot of those ideas, this looks a bit like, this is the fix. All you got to do, identify your core belief, practice, get rid of it, you're fine. Voila, my life is transformed. And obviously that's not Zen. That's not what our practice is about. And I guess two things save that. Obviously, they're bringing it back to our fundamental practice. It's just an excuse to sit, basically. It's just an excuse to sit and allow ourselves to experience what it is that's difficult, what it is that's hard. But also, it's not a quick fix. It's not a follow these 6 simple steps and your life will be transformed. It's no. Come back to what Joko always says. It takes you 5 years to get what the practice is and then you leave because it's difficult, because we don't like it. It's not like that at all. Change happens, but it's incremental. It's slow. And why core beliefs? Because, it's the strongest and most immediate experience she can find. Okay, what else? What else is important? Joko often talks about false emotion. And when she does so, it's often in a way that sounds quite dismissive. That's not real emotion because it's not about what's happening now, in this moment. You're complaining about that. Is that really a problem? In this moment? No, it isn't. Stop worrying about it. She can sound like that, like she's being, kind of quite put downy. But actually, what could be more false than this crazy idea what we think I acquired as a child? What could be more crazy than that? And what do? We practice with it for years. It's not something you can just put down, toss aside, ignore. No. We have to be with this. We have to be with the effect of this. Psychological term, affect, the actual feeling, the actual emotion this brings up in us, whether or not we think it's true, false, or whatever, it doesn't matter. This is what I'm actually feeling. I can't just change how I feel because I fancy it. I can't talk myself out of it. I have to be with it. That idea of this individualizing, that this self-limitation individualizes us, is really important, I think, too. Often it is pain that kind of separates us. Come back to this question, why does the child think it must be my fault? And why on earth would the adult carry on thinking, oh, it must be my fault, I can't seem to get anything right, I'm not very lovable? Well, this is where I'd like to take it really sober and say, what are the stories that our society tells us all the time, whether or not we believe them, that are always there in the background? If you try hard enough, you can achieve anything. Must be me then. If you wanted enough, you could get anywhere. I clearly don't want it enough. I think I do. There can only be one winner. See, any quiz show, Bake Off, The Apprentice, whatever. It's always the same story, bringing it back to you. No, you failed because you're a loser. It's that simple. Why would we think this way? This is This is the sea in which we live like fish. This is the water. This is the taste of everything. And it's the feel of our affect, what I actually feel, how I feel about the world. It just flows through. It doesn't matter whether we actually consciously believe any of this stuff. It's the air we breathe, the water we swim in. So I think we can use Joko's answer to the core belief to start investigating these stories, the way they make us feel. I'm back to experiencing the body. What's the experience of these stories in my body, as my body, when I feel them the way they do? How do these connect with the feelings of childhood? The answer is always to bring it back to my experiencing, the way that thoughts connects with affect, with feeling, with emotion, and the reality of how I feel in this moment. That's always my starting point. And that's the strength, if you like, that's Joko's real positive core belief, that we bring it back to the body and the experiencing of the body and sitting with the body over time and over time and over time. I'll leave it there.